Tonight, we are stepping into the strange forgotten corners of the 1960s. These are films that survived the decades through archives, public domain loopholes, and official uploads. No paywall required. Just history on your screen. We are counting down 15 rare classics you can watch free on YouTube right now. Stay to the end, because the final picks feel like time capsules that still bite. Number 15, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. There are movies that entertain you. Then there are movies that change the air in the room. Night of the Living Dead is the second kind. It opens like a quiet drive into normal life. Then it turns that normal life into a locked door that will not hold. The film looks simple on the surface, a farmhouse, a small group of strangers. A threat outside that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it back. Yet the tension feels endless because the real danger is not only the figures in the dark, it is fear. It is mistrust. It is the way panic makes people cruel. What makes this feel rare for YouTube viewing is how raw and direct it remains even now. The pacing is lean. The lighting is harsh. Every shadow feels like a decision that went wrong. You can see the roots of modern horror here without flashy tricks. It is survival horror before the phrase existed. It is also a mirror held up to a decade that was already anxious and divided. The story never pauses to comfort you. It keeps tightening the rope. When you watch it on YouTube for free, you are not just watching a cult title. You are watching a piece of cinema history that proved you did not need a huge studio to shake the world. Keep an eye on how the group argues about leadership. The monster outside is terrible. The monster inside the room can be worse. Number 14, Dementia, 1963. Dementia 13 feels like a secret someone forgot to lock away. It is early Francis Ford Coppola, made fast and cheap, but filled with unease that lingers long after the story moves on. The film follows a woman who inserts herself into a wealthy family while hiding a dark motive. What begins like a psychological drama slowly drifts into something more unstable and dangerous. What makes this a rare YouTube classic is its atmosphere. The castle setting feels cold and watchful. Hallways stretch too long. Conversations feel unfinished. The camera lingers just enough to make you uncomfortable without explaining why. Violence arrives suddenly and without warning, not as spectacle but as interruption. There is a dreamlike quality to the storytelling. Characters feel isolated even when standing together. Motives blur. Reality slips sideways. The black and white photography sharpens every shadow and makes every expression feel loaded with threat. Watching it free on YouTube highlights how experimental early 60s horror could be before rules hardened. Dementia 13 does not explain itself. It does not reassure you. It simply unfolds and leaves you to sit with the aftermath. It feels less like a movie and more like a bad memory someone tried to forget. Number 13, The Last Man on Earth, 1964. The Last Man on Earth is quiet horror, not loud, not fast. It is the sound of a world that has already ended and did not bother to announce it properly. Vincent Price plays a man moving through empty streets like a ghost who still has chores to do. He wakes up. He fortifies his home. He searches for supplies. He tries to keep a routine because routine is the last thread tying him to sanity. Outside are creatures that used to be people. They call to him. They wait. They return every night. The fear is steady. The loneliness is worse. What makes this one feel rare is its mood. It is not just a monster movie, it is a grief movie. It is a sickness movie. It is a movie about what happens when the world becomes a silent museum and you are the only visitor left. The black and white photography helps. It makes the city feel drained. It makes the daylight feel cold. Even safety looks bleak. Price gives one of those performances where you can hear exhaustion in the pauses. He is not acting brave. He is acting tired. That is why it lands. Watching it free on YouTube also highlights how much modern post-apocalypse cinema borrows from this blueprint. The solitary scavenging, the diary-like narration, the nightly siege, the fragile hope that another survivor might exist. It is a foundational piece of the genre that still feels personal, like a nightmare someone wrote down before it faded. Number 12, The Terror, 1963. The Terror feels like a fever dream that wandered out of a gothic novel and into a storm. A soldier rides through a harsh landscape and meets a woman who seems out of place in time. The closer he gets to the truth, the more the world bends around him. This is the kind of 60s oddity that earns its reputation through atmosphere more than logic. The castle corridors feel damp and haunted. The beaches feel like the edge of the earth. Faces appear like memories. Voices echo like warnings. What makes it a rare YouTube watch is how it captures a certain chaotic era of low-budget filmmaking, where imagination had to cover the gaps. You can sense the production strain. Yet that strain creates its own mood. The film becomes disorienting in a way that almost works like a spell. It is not polished. It is restless. And because of that, the images stick. Every scene feels like it might collapse into another story without telling you. If you love watching cinema like an archaeologist, this is a must. It is also a lesson in how horror can be created by uncertainty. You are never fully sure what is real. You are never fully sure whether the hero is chasing a woman or chasing a mistake. By the end, you might feel like you woke up from someone else's nightmare. Number 11. Carnival of Souls, 1962. Carnival of Souls is not just creepy, it is lonely. It begins with a crash and then moves through life as if the world is slightly off balance. A young woman survives and starts drifting through a new town with a job she does not love and a feeling she cannot name. Then the visions start. A pale figure watching her. A sound that feels like a distant organ. A carnival pavilion by the water that looks abandoned yet somehow alive. The horror here is quiet and spiritual. It creeps in like fog. This is a rare free classic because it works on you slowly. It is not about jump scares. It is about the dread of being out of sync with everyone else. People talk to her and she feels detached. Rooms feel too empty. Churches feel too cold. The film creates a sense of being alive while not fully present. That is a fear most horror films never touch. Watch the way the camera frames the carnival structure. It becomes a symbol of something waiting, something patient, something that does not need to chase you because it knows you will return. For a 60s film, it feels oddly modern in its psychological weight. When it ends, it does not feel like a twist. It feels like a truth finally spoken out loud. Number 10. The Little Shop of Horrors, 1960. Before it became a beloved musical sensation, it was a scrappy little monster comedy that moved fast and laughed at its own madness. The Little Shop of Horrors is the kind of film that feels like it was made on pure adrenaline. A nervous young clerk works in a Skid Row flower shop and discovers a strange plant that seems to thrive on more than sunlight. The story escalates quickly. The humor gets darker, the plant gets hungrier, and the hero keeps making choices that feel small until they become impossible to undo. What makes it rare and perfect for a free YouTube night is how playful it is. The dialogue snaps. The characters feel like cartoons drawn in human form. The tone sits between horror and comedy in a way that still feels fresh. You can see the fingerprints of later cult cinema all over it. The idea that you can make something cheap yet unforgettable if you commit fully to the premise. Also watch how the film treats desperation. It is funny, but it is also sad. The characters want a way out. They want dignity. They want to be noticed. And when the plant offers a shortcut, it becomes a deal with consequences. It is entertainment with teeth. A B-movie that somehow understands human weakness better than bigger films. Number 9. The Diamond Arm, 1968. The Diamond Arm is a classic that feels like a warm rush of mischief. It is a crime comedy built on mistaken identity and everyday chaos. An ordinary man goes on a trip and returns home wrapped up in a smuggling scheme without fully realizing how deep he is in it. The humor comes from the contrast. A decent, harmless person suddenly surrounded by criminals who keep treating him like a key piece of their operation. What makes this a rare YouTube gem is that it opens a window into Soviet-era popular cinema at its most entertaining. It is stylish. It is quick. It has musical moments. It has physical comedy. And beneath the laughs, it shows a society full of small routines and quiet absurdities. The film does not feel like homework. It feels like a crowd pleaser made with craft and confidence. Pay attention to how the comedy builds through repetition. A small misunderstanding becomes a chain reaction. A simple lie becomes a larger performance. And the hero keeps trying to return to normal life while normal life keeps sliding away. It is a great reminder that classic cinema is not always heavy or tragic. Sometimes it is simply joyful, and joy can be its own kind of rarity. Number 8. Kidnapping Caucasian Style, 1967. Kidnapping Caucasian Style is a bright, fast comedy that turns one ridiculous plan into an avalanche of trouble. A young man arrives in a scenic region to collect folklore. He is polite. He is curious. He is completely unprepared for the locals who decide to stage a kidnapping as part of a forced romance plot. The premise sounds wild because it is wild, yet the film plays it with such comic confidence that you get pulled into the absurdity. This is one of those rare YouTube classics that also functions as cultural time travel. The locations feel vivid. The humor is physical and character-driven. The villains are not terrifying. They are incompetent. They argue. They improvise. They fail again and again. It becomes a comedy of errors where the audience stays one step ahead and laughs at how long it takes for the hero to understand the game. Watch for the way the film uses landscape, mountains, roads, courtyards. It turns real places into comedic stages. It also shows how broadly appealing a well-built farce can be even across languages and decades. You do not need to catch every word. The energy tells you everything. Number 7. Beware of the Car, 1966. Beware of the Car is a comedy built on a strange and gentle moral question. What if a criminal believed he was doing the right thing? The film follows a modest insurance agent who secretly steals cars from corrupt citizens and donates the money to orphanages. It sounds like a farce, but the film plays it with surprising warmth and melancholy. What makes this a rare YouTube gem is its balance. The humor is light and playful, yet the story quietly examines hypocrisy, justice, and social performance. The hero is awkward and sincere. The people chasing him are not villains. Everyone exists in a gray zone where rules and ethics rarely align. The film captures everyday Soviet life with affectionate detail. Apartments feel lived in, streets feel busy, conversations overlap. Comedy grows from character rather than punchlines. You laugh, but you also feel the sadness underneath. Watch how often the film pauses on silence after jokes land. That pause is where its soul lives. Beware of the Car is funny, thoughtful, and strangely humane. Free on YouTube, it feels like rediscovering a comedy that trusted its audience to think as well as laugh. Number 6. I Am Cuba, 1964. I Am Cuba feels like cinema drifting through a dream that refuses to wake up. It moves across Havana and the countryside like a witness with no heartbeat. The camera glides and climbs and floats as if the world itself is telling the story. You watch a rooftop party, then you watch poverty beneath it. You watch sugar fields, then you watch smoke and anger rising from streets. The film is not built like a simple plot. It is built like chapters of emotion. Each chapter shows a different life. Each life feels trapped by the same invisible pressure. What makes this a rare YouTube classic is the pure craft on display. You can feel the ambition in every shot. The movement is not there to show off. It is there to make you feel how small people can become inside big systems. Faces fill the frame, then disappear into crowds. A celebration can turn into dread within seconds. A quiet moment can suddenly become a storm. The film keeps shifting mood because the country it portrays is shifting too. Watch it with patience and you will notice how the camera becomes a character. It listens, it follows, it mourns, it never looks away. The result is hypnotic and sometimes overwhelming. It is one of those films that makes you rethink what a movie can be when it is not chasing comfort. Free on YouTube, it feels like finding a museum door left open at night. Number 5. Welcome or No Trespassing, 1964. Welcome or No Trespassing is a comedy that behaves like a prank and a warning at the same time. A well-meaning man wants to do the right thing. He becomes a village guard and believes rules will bring order. Then the rules begin to multiply. Signs appear. Boundaries harden. The village turns into a maze of permissions and forbidden zones. And the more he tries to enforce the system, the more ridiculous the system becomes. This is the kind of rare 60s film that uses laughter to expose fear. It never needs heavy speeches. It simply shows how quickly everyday life can be chopped into little controlled pieces. A path becomes restricted. A river becomes forbidden. a neighbor becomes suspicious. The humor is bright and playful, but the idea underneath is sharp. Power does not always arrive with tanks. Sometimes it arrives with paperwork and loud voices and a smile that says, "It is for your own good." The film also has a warm human core. People are not monsters. They are tired, they are scared, they are trying to survive inside changing rules that do not make sense. That is why the comedy lands. You recognize the feeling, you laugh, and then you catch yourself because the laughter has a shadow. Watching it free on YouTube is like discovering a classic that still knows how to sting. Number 4. Onibaba, 1964. Onibaba is not horror in the loud sense. It is horror that grows out of hunger, jealousy, and survival. Set in a desolate marsh during Civil War, the film follows two women who survive by killing lost soldiers and selling their belongings. Life is reduced to instinct. Morality fades quietly. What makes Onibaba a rare and powerful YouTube watch is its physical intensity. Wind tears through tall grass. Mud clings to bodies. The landscape feels alive and hostile. Desire and fear become indistinguishable. The film never lets you forget that survival comes at a cost. The mask at the center of the story becomes a symbol that changes meaning as the film progresses. At first, it feels like folklore. Then it becomes punishment. Then it becomes identity. The horror is psychological, spiritual, and deeply human. Unlike many genre films, Onibaba does not offer escape. It watches its characters sink into desperation step by step. The black and white cinematography is striking and brutal, turning nature into an accomplice. Free on YouTube, Onibaba feels timeless and dangerous. It is a reminder that horror does not need monsters. Sometimes it only needs people pushed far enough. Number 3. A Coachman, 1961. A coachman is quiet and observant. It watches a working man move through streets that do not stop demanding from him. He drives his carriage. He negotiates with passengers. He navigates small humiliations and small kindnesses. The film does not rush to make him heroic. It simply stays with him long enough that you understand the grind of survival. Every ride is a transaction. Every day is a test of endurance. This is a rare YouTube classic because it captures the texture of ordinary life with a steady gaze. The city feels lived in. The jobs feel heavy. The social class lines feel like walls you can touch. There is humor here, but it is the kind that comes from people trying to keep dignity while the world pushes them around. There is sadness too, but it is never used as decoration. It is part of the air. Watch for the way the film uses time. It lingers on faces. It allows pauses. It makes you feel how long a day can be when you are always counting money and always worrying about tomorrow. By the end, you do not feel like you watched a plot twist movie. You feel like you met someone. That is the power of a film like this. Free on YouTube, it is the kind of discovery that reminds you cinema can be simple and still cut deep. Number 2. Aimless Bullet, 1961. Aimless Bullet is the kind of film that carries sorrow like a second skin. It follows a family in post-war Korea living on the edge of collapse. Every member is fighting a different battle. Poverty presses in. Pride gets bruised. Hope feels like a fragile object that keeps slipping from their hands. The title fits because life here feels like something fired into the air with no safe landing. What makes this a rare YouTube watch is how fearless it is about desperation. It does not smooth the pain into neat lessons. It shows the daily humiliations. It shows the constant bargaining with fate. Characters want to do right, but the world keeps offering bad options. The film becomes a portrait of survival where morality is not a clean line. It is a mess. It is hunger. It is shame. It is love that still refuses to die. Pay attention to the performances. They feel raw. The camera does not glamorize the streets. It lets them look hard. It lets interiors feel cramped. It lets silence speak. This is not an easy film, but it is an important one because it shows how the aftermath of war lingers inside families long after the guns stop. Free on YouTube, it is a heavy gift, a classic that demands respect. Number 1. The Housemaid, 1960. The Housemaid begins like a simple story about a family trying to climb into stability. A piano teacher, a wife, children, a modest home. Then a new woman enters their life as hired help, and the entire house starts to feel like a trap. The film turns domestic space into a pressure cooker. Doors feel like secrets. Stairs feel like danger. A small room can feel like a courtroom. Every glance becomes a threat. This is a rare YouTube classic because it is not shy. It is bold. It is twisted. It is psychologically brutal without needing grand scale. The horror is social and personal. Desire collides with shame. Power collides with weakness. The characters make choices, and those choices poison the air. The film keeps tightening until the home itself feels hostile. Watch how the film uses everyday objects: a bed, a piano, a railing, a cup. Things that should feel safe become loaded with tension. The story also plays with class anxiety in a way that still feels sharp. The family wants to appear respectable. The intruder sees the cracks and digs in. The result is shocking and unforgettable. It feels like a thriller and a nightmare and a cautionary tale all at once. Free on YouTube, it is the kind of discovery that makes you sit in silence after the credits. That was our countdown of rare 1960s classics you can watch free on YouTube right now. If you want part 2 with 15 more legit archive picks, tell me your favorite genre: horror, war, sci-fi, or drama. Like, subscribe, and drop your most surprising find in the comments.